welcome back to The Cooking Pros, the show created so I had an excuse to clean the kitchen. Today we are going to be doing a very special dish, Caldo de Costilla, which is a breakfast soup commonly made in Colombia and other Andean countries. It's known as Levanta Muertos, in other words, the dead arise. It could be eaten when you're sick or when you're tired or potentially had too much fun the night before. Another phrase they use is enfermo que come no muere. In other words, those who are sick who eat this don't die. So a lot of big bold promises here for such a few ingredients, but it's a great soup. We have extra time. Why not make it this weekend? All right, very basic ingredients here. We have some salt, some green onion, lime, garlic, cilantro, short ribs, beef short ribs, some potatoes, and optional, you can add bouillon if you'd like. Make this quickly and easy. We're gonna use the pressure cooker. You can use a stovetop pressure cooker. You can use an Instapot, which is kind of like what this is that we are going to be using. You can just make this on the stove. It'll just take a lot more time, and we're trying to make this as easy as possible. All right, I'm gonna take this meat, and this pressure cooker is cool because it has a sear setting. I'm gonna turn that sear setting on high. Searing the meat is not a necessity per se. You could just throw it in there as is and start pressure cooking. I like to do it. It adds a little bit more interesting flavor. So what I'll do is I'll salt the meat first. I'll get some oil in the pressure cooker here. Now that it's set on sear, I'll let that heat up, and I'll just add these in for a couple minutes. All right, my pan is nice and hot. You can hear it sizzling. I'll go ahead and add my meat. If there's a fattier side, I'll put that down so it starts to sear off that fat. This is about 1.5 pounds of short rib, beef short rib. Again, searing's not necessary, but again, I think it adds a lot of good flavor. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes or so, maybe a little less. You can see the meat has been seared on all sides. Now for the easy part. Go ahead and just turn this off for a second because we're going to switch the setting to pressure cook. Into this pot, I'm going to add, I have about 6 of these, I don't know, medium-sized potatoes. They've been peeled. I'm just going to put them in whole. This is the 4 heads of the cebollita, the little green onions, and about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. I'll add that in. I will add a spoon of the bouillon. It's not necessary to do this. Some people do, some people don't, but we're trying to get rid of it, so why not? I'll go ahead and add a little bit of salt. Because I add the bouillon, I'm not going to add as much as I normally would because the salt in the bouillon. If you're not, then add a little bit more. I always salt to taste. It's always easier to add more salt later than to try to dilute that salt. But it is a soup, which naturally would have more salt than you'd think. And there's no other vehicles for the salt in here. It's all very fresh ingredients that we're using. Here I will add about 6 cups of water. And I will prepare this to pressure cook. Pressure cook on high for about 20 to 25 minutes. You don't want the meat to be fall off the bone tender. There's usually still a little bit of a bite to the soup when you have it in Colombia. Shout out to my friends Leo and Kami, who answered all of my text messages yesterday to make sure I don't screw this up. While Caldo de Costilla is a delicious soup that I truly enjoy, I think everyone would agree that God's gift to Colombia is maracujá, which is the passion fruit. Now, passion fruit juice in the States is awful. It's loaded with tons of sugar, and you can't really taste anything but the sugar. The plant itself is just unbelievable in its taste. It's vibrant, it's refreshing, it's delicious. And so what we're gonna do is make that with some pulp you can find at local grocery stores. All right, so I have one 14-ounce package of this passion fruit pulp. I'm adding it to about a cup or two of ice. And then in that I'll add, I don't know, 3 or 4 cups of water. And I will start to blend this up. See, it almost has this frappe ice blended texture to it. Now, if you wanted it to be stronger, you would add less ice and water and more of the pulp. If you wanted it a little bit less, again, change that. To this, I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. Again, unlike a orange juice or something that is naturally very, very sugary, this is not at all. So you can kind of customize the sweetness level to whatever you'd like. But 2 tablespoons of sugar in 1.5 liters is not very much. I ended up putting it on for 25 minutes, so it's ready to go. That's 25 minutes after it's heated up. I'm going to take this. This is a black chamba pottery. It's Colombian. It's made in La Chamba, Colombia, by the local artisans. Very popular all through Colombia. So I'm going to go ahead and add a piece of meat, a potato. Top it off with broth. As I mentioned before, you're going to want leaner cuts of short rib. If after you've made the soup, it's a little too fatty, you can just kind of, that all rise to the top, you can just kind of skim it off. I kind of like it that way, but if that's something you want to make a little bit lighter, you can just skim that right off the top and you're great to go. All right, from here, I'm going to add some really essential pieces. I'm going to add some cilantro. A decent amount. This is going to add a lot of flavor. And then what I think is the most important part is you put lime on top. A good amount of lime. It cuts through any of the fat that is in that beef, and it really just makes it a bit more refreshing. Caldo de Costilla. Get some and get your day started off right. Till next time.